Over the past 9 months, I've watched and become way too attached to One Piece. So today on the News Vault channel, I decided to rank all the One Piece openings in a very incoherent manner. So you know what? Enjoy my ramblings. Just so we're on the same page of how I organize this tier list, I wanted to encapsulate the themes in a few different ways. So first, the relevance to the current plot, like how does the intro relate to the current going on within the story, right? The second thing would be sort of the themes of the song and how they relate to the greater themes of One Piece, like the themes of freedom, the themes of living out your dreams, carrying out your dreams, or chasing your dreams, being within that found family sphere, unleashing the dawn, things like that. Some of those are pretty vague, or some might be too specific if you know what happens later in the series, but I think you'll get what I'm talking about the further you watch the tier list and how it goes on. So I just wanted to encapsulate what those things meant in the theme songs, what themes are discussed in the theme song, and how they relate to the arc at the time, and I changed my opinions on some of the songs throughout the actual tier list. So, enjoy. I think I'm going to start with some of my favorite intros first, and then we can sort of work our way down the tier list. So, okay. This kind of shifted in the last couple months. I'm going to be completely honest. So I finished the series by the time that the first episode of Egghead came out. Not finished, but I caught up on the anime by the time the last episode of Wano hit to the first episode of Egghead. So by the time I caught up on the manga, I think the first two episodes of Egghead came out, whatever. But I got to experience the Egghead intro when it was fresh in the story, which I thought was pretty nice timing. And at first, it really blew my mind. I say at first, but it still blows my mind watching it on a week-to-week basis, right? Not just because of the animation, not just because of the actual not because it's a banger, but because it represents so many of the things that make One Piece, right? And I know it sounds like this is my favorite, but I'm still not sure. The reason why I brought this up first is because it's the most recent one, it's the current one, and it's one that a lot of people are kind of talking about. And I've struggled to I've struggled to find which intro is my favorite, because I feel like when you see the immediate reaction to my top, for two of my top three, it's recency bias. But especially giving it a couple months, it's been what, 3-4 months since Us has come out. It's still up there. It's a top three intro at least in terms of the story content, right? A theme that takes everything that surrounded the arc and everything that is about to be, right? And everything that I personally like about the music and how dynamic it is. It was a really hard decision, but I still think it holds true because it's been on my repeat playlist since last October, November, since before I even started watching the show. I have to put the peak first, right? I know I just spent this whole time talking about Us, but the peak, what I like that the peak does that Us doesn't do, not that it's bad, because Us does something a little different to represent the themes in their own way as the beginning of the final saga, right? And I'll get into that in a second. But Us might be the best intro, but the peak might still be my favorite, tied with Us and what was my second favorite, but is now my third favorite, which we'll get into in a minute. So first, let me talk about the peak, because I've just been talking about Us. So I think the peak is my favorite intro of the show, because not only does it represent the culmination of all the emotions that the people of Wano feel, that our main characters feel, and that everyone in the story sort of feels at that moment in the story, that being the freedom that overcomes them once they defeat Kaido. It ties this in visually with a circle motif that you see throughout the entire intro, and that sense of unity ties everything back to not just Wano feeling whole now that Kaido's gone, Wano feeling like it's together, that's united, that's spherical, the sphere represents how united Wano feels. It not only represents the sun, in which Luffy embodies as the sun god Nika, it not only represents, the sphere of the Straw Hat, that's reaching a little bit, but it just represents the whole nature of the entire arc, which was the longest arc of One Piece, and one of the most ambitious arcs that Oda's undertaken. That has proven like, Oda didn't get to finish every storyline. Like what happened with Zoro's lineage. We don't know. Zoro didn't necessarily need to be in the story, right? Because, like he said, too many. It's basically like too many chiefs, not enough Indians. And he knows where he fits within the greater narrative. But I would have liked to see more of that. That's story content. That's not intro content. But I feel like it's a step above what a lot of other One Piece intros do, where a lot of it is a lot of the same themes that we'll cover is the themes of like freedom and chasing after your dreams, but also we have the themes of found family and like together we can actually like go forward and press on to conquer our dreams. But the peak is more about it's right at the precipice of what makes those dreams sort of a reality and those emotions that you feel once you achieve certain dreams, or once you have the ability to sink in the freedom that allows you to share those emotions with others. It's like what happens when you reach the apex of all those desires and you can sort of achieve them or unlock the ability to experience them, right? And I think that's something that a lot of other One Piece intros like haven't done in that sense. And once you reach the point in that arc, you reach Gear 5, which in of itself encompasses a lot of things that happen in One Piece, a lot of the themes, especially Luffy's themes about just overcoming that which brings you down and becoming being aware of your own sense of self and the things that you want to achieve. And when you have an intro like this, which takes into account all the things that happened in the past, in the beginning, when we see Momo's notebook, that's his own version of the notebook that Odin, his father, created, and how you look back on all the things that led them here for the entirety of the post-time skip since Punk Hazard, and you look back at how many things that they've done and how many things that they've gone through, passing the height of the pirate world to then get to the point where when you surpass that, what else stands in your way in that moment, right? When Luffy attains Gear 5, he's able to give everyone the freedom that they wanted, not just as this deity, but as their friend, right? And that's very important because he's not fighting as someone who everyone there worships, but as someone who everyone believes in, that will have their back. Like he is a friend. He's not some deity, right? The reason why that's like important to specify is because he has the devil fruit of a god, right? It's very easily to toe that line. I think Oda's doing a very good job, especially in Egghead, because you see how people like Dory and Brogy respond to like him having the Nika Nika fruit, or the Hito no Mi model Nika. And I think it's very important to draw the distinction where he has the characteristics of someone like Nika and not is Nika, right? He embodies Nika. He not represents, but he carries the sort of will and personality of Nika, but he is in it of itself, not Nika. That's very important. I think when you have a person like that who is able to carry so many people through a hard time and then allow them to be free, when you have a theme song that represents all those emotions perfectly, and how he's not just in Gear 5, right? For a lot of the theme, he's himself. He's like Luffy is himself, and all the characters get to experience joy now that the hardest point in their history is gone. So I guess to sum it up, I think this theme song, not only sonically in terms of the music, but in visuals, represents what happens when you're allowed to be free when under a extremely oppressive past that sort of uplifts you in a way that resonates with your soul rather than your mind and how you perceive that you are free. So I think having this sort of overlap with the visuals of the togetherness with the circle in the middle all just unites the song in a perfect way that I don't see happening with a lot of other theme songs that are on this tier list. So for me, it's number one. Now, whenever doing the tier list, 2 and 3 are always back to back. And you can probably guess that one of them is us. But the other, as soon as I saw it, it was one of my favorites and has continued to be one of my favorites for the entire series. It's all the themes that I like about We Are, kicked up to an 11 with amazing visuals to aid within the story of the song. It's also good in sub and dub, which is cool. Both of the versions are good. Okay, I think Hikarie is so good at showing how it feels to be a Straw Hat with their previous histories in mind, right? Not only do you have a song about finding your aspirations and chasing them, but then it's paired with the amazing visual storytelling of the Straw Hats being a united family that picks each other up and allows each other to help chase their aspirations, and they support each other. So like the theme song starts with narration, which is one of the few One Piece openings with narration. Whenever I heard it, I got chills because it's like taking what was so great about like We Are and being able to chase your aspirations, but it turns it into a global scale that's not just about pirates, not just about finding the One Piece, but about how the world is a vast land and you're just free to chase your. I just love it because it like shows how the world's sort of your playground and you have to go through life not just chasing your aspirations but like upholding your own beliefs in a very positive way. And when it pans from that intro to the support system that the Straw Hats are as their own found family, it just compounds it so incredibly hard. Like how freeing it is to be a Straw Hat, especially in pre-time skip, right? It just compounds it so incredibly much because then it's shots of like the Straw Hats just like being happy and then transitioning into vignettes that all transition to one another of how the Straw Hats function as a unit. And it's not perfect, but they still all support each other. Not only transitions from these vignettes from each Straw Hat to another, but just how it shows them overcoming a storm and then out of the storm they find something beautiful that's like the dolphin. But then how the ocean represents the vastness of the things that you can accomplish in your life. I just think it works so well. And it does things that I think We Are does in a different way, but Hikarie just lays in terms of like the found family that is finding your own family while on the cruise. That is life. Yeah, I just think that one represents like pre-time skip, before, you know, stuff like Eni's Lobby and maybe like Sabaody, like just extremely well. I love that it plays during Skypiea too. You know, one of the best arcs of the show. Always was, always will be. That's crazy. Okay, now we can talk about Us. Us is great. Us is just fantastic. No notes at all. Every time I see it, I get so incredibly giddy. It is so incredibly great. We're at the beginning of the final saga of One Piece. And I guess the people at Toei it's so satisfying when you get people that understand the source material. Because now that Luffy has basically achieved his peak, right? Now that all these different characters in this world are colliding, everyone's sort of going after the same thing, which is the One Piece, which is their dreams. They're all colliding because of the force that is the Straw Hats, causing these events to spiral and occur from the beginning of the series. So if they didn't rescue Robin at Eni's Lobby wouldn't have crashed and would have set the world government on the tirade that was trying to actually capture the Straw Hats, leading into Ace being captured because of everything that was happening with Blackbeard, like, which seemed like disconnected events. But when you have the government not only wanting to narrow down on the Straw Hats, which become a tirating force, but along with everything else that was on their plate, leading for Luffy to be involved in Marineford because Ace was being there, the government just starts getting overwhelmed with so many things that will come to a head in the final saga. I'm like sort of trimming down a lot of my thoughts to be very concise because there's a million things I could tangent off into, right? And I'm not really doing it the best because that's just what I'm thinking about right now. If any day I could talk about a completely different side of what makes One Piece One Piece, because there's just so many things that compose the stories in One Piece and compose each individual arc. But right now, in this moment, I'm just thinking, it's just so insane how Us represents the chaotic energy at the beginning of the final saga, where all these characters and all their relationships and all their conflicts and all their dreams and hopes and aspirations and goals and how they're closing in on them all sort of converge towards the end of One Piece. Because not only do you have the path of perceived carnage from the outside that the Straw Hats are going on, and how it really just snowballed effect to the entire world just converging on their own individual goals, but because of the Straw Hats and their overwhelming force and how they cause change to occur, you really see that culminate within this Egghead intro, where they cause all this carnage because they represent freedom, because they are free. They don't care about anything else because they're being themselves, and that's all you really need. And then when you have an intro that represents the excitement of being yourself and chasing after your dreams and letting nothing stand in your way, you get this unbridled creativity, this explosion of creativity that I just loved how it was executed in the intro. It just, their entire lives were leading up to this moment, whether they knew it or not, and the intro represents the explosion that is all the things that they've done in the series up till now, causing change to occur for everyone, whether that be the world government, whether that be the Marines, whether that be the pirates in the new era, which is, we're not even in the Great Pirate era anymore, we're in the new era. All of that coming into a head where we're dealing with not just pirate on pirate conflict, not just the Yonko, but we're dealing with like the Gorosei, we're dealing with Emu, we're dealing with with Sabo, Cobra, and Wapol experiencing what the Gorosei even are, actually, and finding out about Emu. All this chaotic energy is being thrown back and forth as the culmination of this crazy long series just comes to a head. And this intro just represents that perfectly. And even the lyrics, where it's like, I forget the exact lyric, but like when so many things happen at once, like it's just so chaotic, right? But they still make sense. And just this umbrella creativity just matches it. It's just so exciting. It just makes you want to actually do something to accomplish your dreams, because it's just the Straw Hats being the Straw Hats caused the world to change. Them actually fighting to be themselves caused the world to change, right? Because they were all taken from so many different backgrounds that were just either just held them back or made them suppress their own beliefs or like anything like that. And now that they fought for them, now that they fought for each other, they're causing all this change to occur. And it's just so cool. Those are my top three. They're kind of locked in. We have this cavalcade of actually really good stuff. And on a different day, I could probably make a new arrangement of all of these. Obviously, I haven't like heard all the international ones. You know what? We'll switch it up. We'll go to D tier. Most of these are at least a C. But I don't really understand what we can supposed to be. Yeah, like the song's not bad. It's saying like we don't have to follow the rules and we can do whatever we want, right? It's coming after like Dressrosa. And they're going into Zoe. We're getting like lore drops out the wazoo, and we don't have to follow the pre-existing path, and we can sort of like tread our own with the information that we're given. But, like the visuals are just like they're fighting Jack. They are the Straw Hats. Jack's an idiot. Well, no, he's not an idiot. He's just annoying. He doesn't really do much. Yeah, no. I just feel like there's not much going on in this intro. I mean, there's a lot going on visually, but it doesn't aid the themes. It feels like it's par for the course. Right, and that's something that sometimes visually I feel like things can be for the course, but then I like the song itself, like superpowers, like superpowers is like a solid B. Visuals aren't really memorable. I couldn't like tell you what was in there besides like Luffy versus Katakuri, but I think overall, them having the song motif of like we have superpowers, not just saying like, oh yeah, we have 12 fruits, blah, 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 but we have superpowers within ourselves to be who we want, is just way better at doing something like Weekend does. It just gets that motif like across better. So like super short blurb about superpowers, but I just think it works really well in its own. It's very simple, gets to the point. While the intro might just represent things that are going on in the arc, I still think that since we're dealing with an arc that deals with a lot of like Sanji's own internal self-worth issues, by saying like we have the superpowers inside of ourselves in contrast to like what Germa does, I just think it acts as good to contrast. It's very simple and effective. So superpowers gets like a B. You know what? We can talk about We Are. We Are is an S tier. You know, We Are a classic, certified classic, represents quite literally everything in One Piece. Succinctly delivers the message. Is the best intro. Not really. There's something about We Are. Like, when I was watching One Piece for the first time, I was feeling nostalgia for something I never even watched during East Blue. I don't know how it was so succinct in everything that One Piece was going to be at its beginning. Because We Are fits so well even today. To this day, it is so iconic. Not just because it's popular or because it's the original intro, but because it holds up today within the themes of the show. Choosing to put the first couple pages of the manga as the intro of the first theme was just such a brilliant idea to enforce everything that One Piece was about to be in terms of the goals of the characters, what everyone knows about within the world, what each characters know, that this is diegetic information that not only the audience knows, but normal people know within the series. And how you were given the way that people perceive Gold Roger and how pirates perceive the message of Gold Roger so succinctly. And it opens up the gates to all of people's dreams within the show. And it's something that works so well because I think Buggy said it really well recently in Egghead. It hasn't even been animated yet. But the way that Buggy was like, have you forgotten what we all started this for? Like, we're pirates and we're going out for our dreams. Let's go find the One Piece. And it still holds true. Like, that message still holds true after 25 years of this series existing, or something like, it's been like 27 years or something since the manga came out. And the way that this intro encapsulates everything just works on every level imaginable. It's so simple. It's so effective. I don't know what I can say that hasn't been said already. It works on so many levels because Hiroshi Kitadani was like, okay, I'm gonna write this. I'm gonna spit fire with this line. We're gonna gather up all our dreams and set out in search of something to find. Not only works on a objective based level with the objective of the characters finding the One Piece, the objective of Luffy finding the One Piece. They're gonna gather up all their dreams and searching something to find, whether it's themselves, whether it's each of the characters' goal, whether it's like anything. It could fit anything. And it represents, Luffy wants to find the One Piece and become the Pirate King, right? As a means to an end for like whatever it is. Nami's gathering up her dreams finally that her village has been liberated, she's been liberated, and she's going to find her dream, which is physically drawing maps of the world, right? But she searched and found her ambition in her childhood, but found the drive and the ability to do so within the series of One Piece, right? And even when you have someone like Sanji, who has to look within himself, right? And find that he doesn't have to hold himself to the people who sacrificed their life for him, right? Like, Zeph saved Sanji so he could go after his dream, but he was holding himself back, right? And he had to gather the courage to go after his dream and find himself within that dream, increasing his sense of self-worth, condensing it down. It just gets to represent so many of the themes of the characters as they find their dreams, as they find themselves, through all the trials and tribulations. They are off to find something, and they're all in it together. The song just represents the grand journey that is One Piece, as they're on the cruise of life, as they're finding their goals. It's so good. I don't know how to put words to this song. It does more than what I can put into words that I can't even express all meaning into the words that I say. It's S tier. It's not as high as these three. While we're on the topic of it, I think the Straw Hat version, since before I was talking about the theme, talking about placement, talking about like how it represents the point in the story that it is right then and there, I think the Straw Hat version is a little better. Because it's slightly different, because in the anime, the We Are Straw Hat version takes place after, they're taking their stand at Eni's lobby. Robin says, "I want to live," and then Luffy's like, "Okay, let's go," and he drags them all down in the pit, and they're all screaming. Episode ends with Luffy dragging them down. The next episode, immediately, you're hit with the We Are Straw Hat version. And that 1-2 punch was so impactful to me. It's been so long since we heard We Are. Been over like 300 episodes, right? For me, that was like, I don't know, like 3 months or something when I was watching One Piece. And then you're hit with the best moments in the series, and then you get hit with the Straw Hats themselves singing We Are, and it just makes the themes that were already existent within We Are, it just takes it to a whole new level when the Straw Hats sing that they're united and they're chasing their dreams and finding themselves on the cruise. That is, their journey. That is what their dreams are and what life is, right after someone who repressed their own goals and dreams, that tried their whole life to chase after them, that was rejected and ostracized from just being who they are, and finally realized that they had a family that would accept them. As soon as that moment happens, you play We Are, was genuinely one of the most impactful moments of the entire series for me. It genuinely hit way too hard. It was just amazing. So I think We Are, the Straw Hat version, slightly above the regular We Are. Another one of my favorites. We're talking about Kokoro no Chizu. And let's see, where would they put it? This is a personal favorite of mine, okay? A lot of themes in One Piece kind of stumble upon the same themes. That, they're finding their hopes and dreams together on the cruise. That is life. That is their journey, blah, blah, blah. I've said it a couple times, and I'm going to say it way more times. But Kokoro no Chizu, specifically tying it to like the heart and how they feel about it, and just I just love the harmonies in this song, paired with the intro. I think it has one of my favorite shots of the Straw Hats on the Mary. This is my favorite ship shots of the entire show. I just love the angle, how you see the Straw Hats one after another. It's not like a static shot like happens a lot later where it's like, oh, the Straw Hats are like looking off, but like how it unveils each one of them and how they're just all looking forward. It's just really good composition too. I just really like it. This is the first widescreen intro, and I think they really used the real estate to do something bombastic with how dreamlike the world of One Piece feels, and how, because they're chasing after their dreams, it's something that they always aspired to do. It is a dream, so why not represent that in the beginning with like sparkles? It's so nice. And them falling into the world, like, it, obviously they physically do that in the show. They literally just physically did that from Skypiea. But it's like them crashing into the world and crashing into all the situations that they get themselves in. I also just love the song itself. I just love the harmonies. It just hits right. It hits right. It ticks all the boxes of what they want an ninja to be. It has the heart. It doesn't have to be epic or cool. It could just resonate with you. I just love it. Also, Sanji just in a t-shirt here. It's like so juxtaposed, but I love it. And even them just like sailing on the ocean, but then being able to experience like just time with each other, like while they sit on this beach and they lay down and look at the stars as they fall asleep. It's nice. Yeah. And then you have, clips from the actual anime. But it has this really cool shot of Kaku, which I also just really liked, because when you start Water 7, you're like, what is cooking here with a plot? Like, because when you start Water 7, the Mary's at stake, Robin's at stake. Well, this new island, which feels so fully realized, it already was like hitting all the right boxes for like a plot for me. I was like, a lot of stuff is being set up here. I don't know what's going to happen. I just really like the shot of Kaku, because it feels like they're about to get into a world that they genuinely were not prepared for, right? Right after experiencing an admiral, that is Aokiji. It just feels like they're about to enter an entirely new portion of the show, which I very much liked. So with that in mind, Yeah, no, Kokoro no Shizu is also S tier for me. Transition! Bon Voyage is next. I really like Bon Voyage. It's very, I feel like compared to a lot of these other intros where you're comparing like all the Straw Hats hopes and dreams and pairing that with the intro, and you're like going on this fast journey, I feel like Bon Voyage lives in the present moment a lot during the intro, and it feels like they're on the journey, right? And it feels very like it feels like the intro is living in the moment, rather than presenting what are the Straw Hats, like what are their goals, what is the goals of the series. I feel like Bon Voyage is very present, and I love how to mark like the last intro with sort of like an opening monologue. It's Luffy, and Luffy's introducing like the ideals that are being pushed forward, and because it's Luffy, the song is about being in the present, right? And I think that's very cool. I love how there's so many like interstitials of just like the Straw Hats, either unified or individually, and how they each are characterized by something in the beginning of the opening. I just think it's very solid. It's gonna go in A tier. It's just a very solid intro, and I think it's very good. Let's do another one where I feel like it's very present within the series, and I think it matches sort of the vibe of the goals that are paired with not just the Straw Hats, but what they're trying to accomplish in terms of what these Straw Hats are trying to say to one of the main sources of conflict in the arc, and that's Sanji. So I think we're gonna do Hope next. So it's kind of hard for me to place it in terms of the actual tier list. I like a lot of the intent of the messaging within the actual theme song, because it's saying that like no matter what we go through, like we are the source of hope for each other, right? From the Straw Hats to Sanji within the moment, like from even Sanji to like Pudding, it's sort of like we thrive off of each other, and I think the song is very good at expressing that. So I think the way that they choose to produce it, just the way that the vocals like shine through, how it sort of has its slower paced moments, or like I don't know a lot of music terminology, but how it like lulls and then builds up. I think it just works really well, and I don't know. I'm struggling to put it at the place in the tier list. I think I might change it depending on what songs they put later in the tier list. So it's like a low A, high B. So I think I'm gonna put it at low A for now. It's very good. Especially because like when I'm reading the manga, because I was reading the manga post time skip until Wano, I was just sort of thinking about the theme, and I'm like, that fits really well. That fits really well. Especially when you're thinking about like how the person from the worst generation in the arc, like Beijing, is the leader of like this mafia pirate crew, but they're more unified and more familiar towards each other, and they help each other than the actual family that Big Mom wants to make, or not wants to make, but has, because she has like 80 children. And I think that dichotomy between them is like hammered in with supporting each other within the opening, how they inspire each other, how they bring each other hope. I think it's done very well, and it fits the arc extremely well. Another theme song that fits the arc extremely well, I would say, is Brand New World. I'm just gonna slot this in at the top of A for now, because Brand New World brings that ecstatic energy that comes in the new world of foes and possibilities that the Straw Hats are about to face and receive, like not receive, but go around so they can explore new possibilities for their own future, right? Because Brand New World plays in Ennie's lobby, and they're about to declare war on the world government, and because of that, they're literally opening up this brand new world of insane things that they really don't know what they're getting into. But by, raising their flag and charging through, by raising their flag of their beliefs and like going straight through, they're still holding on to themselves as they go for these bigger and bolder moves that they don't really care that they're doing. They're only really doing it because they're there for each other, the way that they're there for Robin, and the way that they march through. It just works really well. So I know I said like raising the flag, like your beliefs, that's more of like a Hikarie thing, but I think overall, like a lot of the things I said are still reinforced by the theme and the aesthetic energy, especially paired with them fighting against CP9 near the end of the actual intro, where a lot of times footage from the actual arc that's fit into the theme it's sort of like 50-50 chance if it works or not. But I think when they're like facing off against these enemies, when the intro's saying like we can't stop just because something like comes in our way, like we're facing these new possibilities, we're going against like the odds, and we're actually like we're going against anything that stands in our way to like actually chase after our dreams. And I think that paired with the ecstatic energy placed at the point in the arc where it's literally brand new world, they're opening their new world of possibilities, I keep saying that, but then also it opens their eyes up to all the consequences of their actions that lead to them dealing with people from the new world. Because after Water 7, they're immediately faced with the challenges that are the new world. Because after Water 7, you get in the Thriller Park, and the whole time Gekko Mori's like, bro, if you can't beat me, you're not ready for the new world. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of character stuff going on with Gekko Mori that's irrelevant to that. But still, one of the through lines of what Gekko Mori is saying, like, I'm basically like your barrier, right? Because I got sent back here. So if you're struggling against me, what are you gonna do? And I think that because we're dealing with the idea of the new world from Eni's lobby on, having this intro place where it is, along with like the ecstatic energy that it brings, that saying like we can't really stop because we're being faced with all these things. I think it just works really well. Also, it's just a good song. So hi A. Okay, next is Crazy Rainbow. I'm probably gonna give this one high B. High B. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. The metaphor of a rainbow being like things that mark their dreams. Pretty cool, pretty solid, pretty simple. It's a fun vibe. It's really jarring going from like brand new world into this, because like it's just like a fun romp when like you're dealing with all the stuff that's going on in Eni's lobby, right? It feels like because it's a good intro and it matches thematically because it's marking their dreams with something that they can like visualize thematically. But I feel like it's not entirely relevant to anything that's happening, especially compared to the last few intros. But it's still pretty good, pretty solid, pretty fun. Not like it a bit. So just not too much to say about it. So it goes high B. Actually, no, I'm thinking about like all the relevance that Superpowers has. No, it's gonna go under Superpowers. Okay, I got something to say about this one. Okay, next is Believe. I think it's the intro that baffles me the most. I just feel like it doesn't fit for One Piece. It feels like the least relevant intro overall in terms of the actual song, in terms of like the visuals just not matching with a lot of like what One Piece was going to be. It's really weird because you go from We Are, which is something that predicted all the themes that were going to be relevant for the rest of the show, using what they had as sort of like with East Blue as sort of a like reference point, right? And then you go into something that feels so tonally dissonant with the rest of the actual show. And again, it's not bad. I'm just baffled at its existence. So overall, like the song points to like believing in like the fabled wonderland that like is the place where like all your dreams would like reside, or like all your hopes would like rest in, and like you have to believe in Wonderland as you like chase after it, and as you chase after your dreams. But the thing is, like, I don't feel like Wonderland, unless I'm completely just missing it, I'm completely off the mark. But like, I don't think believing in this place where all your dreams come true is like a tangible thing. It's not tangible, it's like a metaphor. But as this idea lends to like the themes of One Piece, where it's chasing after your dreams because you can make them a reality with the people that you find, right? And the theme even starts with like Dragon's monologue at the end of Log Town, where he sets up again the themes for the rest of the show, as it's the end of like the prologue. It's in chapter 100. It's like this grand statement that Dragon makes, and then it transitions into the theme that talks about Wonderland, like a place that everything won't reside. But I'm like, I don't know if that fits. So personally, I just don't think it's like as good as all the others. I'm saying it's like one of my least favorites. So I think it's above We Can, because I think some of those themes fit on the surface level, but I just don't see how it actually functions in relation to the narrative looking further. Again, it's not a bad song. It just baffles me. It just doesn't seem to fit with what I think One Piece represents. This one's probably like a personal one. the same way like belief is. And it might not be making sense here. But another one of my least favorites is One Day, right? I feel like, from what I've seen, is also like a favorite. I'm not sure. So because of that, we're going to do a comprehensive watch through because it plays during Marineford. There's so many things off the back of all the things that are at stake. There's Ace, there's the new pirate era. There's so many things, right? And I love all the other intros surrounding this arc. Kage no Sagashito, it's amazing. We'll get there. Fight together, amazing. It's great. But I am so fallen out of what this theme is. Okay, I'm gonna be real. It's a lot better on rewatch, especially after post Marineford. I haven't even watched this theme. I probably haven't even watched this theme since like post Marineford. But after actually reading post Marineford and like watching this intro back, is actually a lot better than when I was actually watching it in the anime originally. Marineford is when I started reading the manga, really. I was going back and forth. But actually watching this theme with the context of like Luffy's character and like how he formed the personality that he did when he was a child, like, and why he wanted to like join Ace and Sabo and become their friends. Actually, the beginning of this intro lyrically improved dramatically since I last thought of it. I don't know if they had the time to like know the story of like post Marineford because I didn't know like how far ahead the manga was at the time. Honestly, it matches pretty well. It matches what Luffy thinks inside his head that he not exactly represses, but that the reason why he chases after his dreams so intensely is because of where he was in his childhood. And I think that the intro just improved drastically, lyrically, once I now know about Luffy in post Marineford in the flashback. So I mean, most of the visuals are kind of irrelevant, I'll be real. Most of it is just action shots, but the symbolism of like them going through this icy landscape, but Luffy like trying to catch Ace, but then the surrounding area is so cold, regardless of if it's Aokiji or whatever, because regardless of if these are bricks or not, or everything's destroyed, it is an icy landscape. It's still the cold outer reality of the world that's sort of being impacted onto them. So that's whether it's a ruined landscape or an icy world. I think the color choice is very intentional because, you know, the location now Kiji is setting up the ice and whatever, but that's irrelevant. You know, this intro definitely shot up, especially in the beginning where it's talking about like where Luffy's like, am I getting stronger? Because strength in terms of, especially this arc, but in terms of One Piece, isn't exactly about strength in terms of, you know, physical raw capability in fighting, but it's about strength of your inner strength as a person. How Luffy views strength in relation to becoming the Pirate King, because the stronger that he is, the more he's able to become free and be sure that all of his friends and all the people that he cares about are also free and can live out their dreams, because he's able to step in where they cannot, right? It's not even like, I'm going to use the strength to let you be free. It's he has the strength to aid people that are his friends when they are not able to themselves. And that's something that's reinforced because like we're getting into like Zoro and Sanji are the two like wings of the Pirate King. And I really like the conversation that happened in, what did it happen? It was post Wano, pre Egghead. Where they're talking about Vivi, and they see Vivi in the newspaper, and like Luffy's literally about to drop everything to go back to Alabasta to see if Vivi's alright. But then Zoro steps in and he's like, she's a straw hat? Are you really underestimating like Vivi's capability as a person? And it really enforced the ideal that because a lot of people were like, that's Zoro saying that, because that's part of Zoro's character, but I think it still speaks to Luffy because you see so many times that Zoro and Sanji represent two parts of Luffy, that being Zoro's aspirations to become the strongest swordsman in achieving his dreams, and being very strong, being strong enough to protect others, and he's very stoic in that mindset. But then you have Sanji, who's sort of like the heart, that he cares very much about the things that he cares about. He's very kind. He makes sure that others are okay. He's a cook, like he's very empathetic. And when you have those two sides, sometimes their actions represents part of the whole that is Luffy. And a scene like that really showcases how Luffy views his strength to protect others. Because like he just beat Kaido, and he's literally about to turn around and be like, is Vivi okay? Not because, you know, she's weak, because she literally was she infiltrated like an entire secret organization when she was like a teenager. That's not what Luffy's focused about, because they also taught each other in Alabasta what it means to be a leader. But the fact that he has the strength to make sure that his friends are alright, because he wants to make sure that they are living their best life the way that they're able to. So Luffy having the mindset at this point in the story where he's going through all of these things because he just wants to save Ace. And it's sort of this look back where he's sort of getting flashed with his mindset as a child, or his trauma from a child, where he views himself as weak by the end of things, whenever Post Marineford plays out, because he's not strong enough to make sure that others are living their best lives. And One Day is sort of like a precursor to that. So having it take place during Marineford, when Luffy is actively, literally sacrificing his own life to make sure that others are safe, in terms of this reassurance of like, am I getting stronger? While he's going through all of these insane things, actually works really well within the context that I now have of post Marineford. So actually, this is going to shoot up lyrically. Visually, it's whatever. Besides like this visual motif of like this landscape, they're just action shots. But I think I'm going to raise this to high B. I think that's the craziest switch up I've had, from seeing an intro for the first time and then seeing it now with the context of the whole series. I think this is the biggest. You know what? No, I'm gonna put in low A for this whole time, for the past 6 months since I read Marineford. It's been over here, but actually with the context of the whole series and like knowing Luffy's character and actually rewatching the intro, it's actually kind of good. I'm just gonna be completely real. I could just be, having One Piece up too much, but I'm a One Piece fan. I think that's definitely the biggest jump an intro is gonna have from like any point in the tier list. Actually, wait, no, I'm gonna double check myself. The visuals need to be more visually happening, because they had something going there with Ace and Luffy in this landscape, but I think there needs to be something a little more happening besides action shots of everyone at Marineford. Because yeah, there's a lot of people at Marineford. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people. It literally is responsible for some of the most dense, like, okay, it's like it has some of the most dense world building simply from characters interacting from so many parts, so we get so much context about so many characters and their histories and history with each other, and there's so much to grasp from that, along with just the story that's taking place in the present day, not just like the interactions between the characters that are sort of separated, but like, anyway, yeah, it's pretty good now. Not something that I'll listen to a lot, in terms of like listening to a song. I won't listen to it that much. It's probably down here, but it's pretty good lyrically. You know what? Since we were just talking about One Day, let's just talk about Fight Together. Fight Together is like top of A for now. Yeah, okay. Fight Together is top of A. I love Fight Together. I guess I was like an idiot about the lyrics before, because Fight Together got those feelings across that I talked about in One Day across so much more efficiently to me when I was watching it. Especially because like this is when I started reading the manga, but then while I was watching, I still like kept up with the intros, and I would still watch them a few times. So like every few chapters I just like watch an intro, because I'm that type of person. I like the intros. But I think Fight Together really contains the feelings of looking at where you are now, and you realize like that's why I'm surrounding myself with these people that can support me and I can support them, because we go through these struggles together. And it also, like, the production seems like very nostalgic. I just really like the song because it's sort of looking back at all the things that led you up to this moment, in a very different approach than I feel like all the other intros, like The Peak and Us. It's very different, because it's sort of like the precipice of a new era, separated from like the fact that it's pre-time skip and post-time skip, but the new era for the characters themselves, not just in terms of the story. So I think that really comes across really well. I think it's one thing to do a victory lap, but I think it's also something special to do a lap where you're looking at all the things that compose your journey and how you have to press on even in moments where there's great despair. And I think Fight Together just fits it so well. I'm talking about like second guessing yourself, but also just looking forward to the future with the people that you have surrounding you and why you're there with each other. I think it works just really well. It's like almost an S tier. Might as okay, the fact that I'm even juggling between A and S tier should talk about like why I have it in such high regard. So I think no, let's put it bottom of S tier. It's going bottom of S tier for me specifically. And I think it's a point where there's a lot of flashbacks in the intro to previous moments that made up the series, and One Piece does this a couple times, but I think it's very impactful here, as in a similar way as they do currently at the ending for Egghead, where it's sort of at a very impactful moment in the story where all of these moments about the Straw Hats finding each other and Luffy having them join the crew remind the characters and remind us, the viewer, of what means so much to these characters and how they mean so much to each other. I just think it fits really well at this point in the story, especially when they're all separated. I just think it works really well. And while we're talking about the Straw Hats being all separated in the theme song, actually like laying into that, let's talk about Kazi. Well, if I can pronounce it right, Kazuo Sakashito. This is gonna be top of A. Actually, yeah, no, we're gonna have Kazuo Sakashito at the top of A because it's one of the most underrated intros of the whole series, I think, because having the symbolism of the Straw Hats enjoying time together on a piece of land that is bigger than they realize, because it's not actually a piece of land, it's, a giant turtle, leads into the symbolism that when they're enjoying themselves and pressing forward, they summon situations that are bigger than they realize. And on the macro scale, the Straw Hats don't realize that being themselves gets them into a world of trouble that they really did not expect. And it represents all the things that are going to happen within the story going forward, right? Because this plays during like Amazon Lily and like Impel Down, and having the symbolism of the Straw Hats enjoying this sort of like fantasy world also lends to the fact that like they just had the worst moment of one of the worst moments of their lives, from their perspective, with Kuma separating them and them like sort of the intro playing like this fantasy of the fact that they are together. The themes that it gets across is like the denial within the headspace of a Straw Hat at that point, because it doesn't have a direct parallel within the story, rather other than Luffy waking up in Amazon Lily and acting like everything's fine because he has to, because if he doesn't let himself think that things are fine, then he will break down. So having this intro open with a situation where they're all enjoying time together, but then realizing that they're on something that they really just didn't know that they were getting into, just works so well at this point in the story. Like there's a lot of visual storytelling going on here in this intro that I feel like goes underappreciated, because it was very specific at this point in the story, especially because like I think it's one of the best at visual storytelling in terms of what the animators decide to focus on, or what the directors decide to focus on. It was just very well done. I also love how near the end the song takes a turn and then it twists into all these different ways that everything's really not going well, because then it transitions into like it fell down, then it transitions into Marineford, and we get a glimpse of that. And if you're just like an anime viewer at the time, you're like, what's going on at Marineford? Was this even Marineford? Because you're dealing with like the admirals, you're dealing with Ace walking up the steps, and like so many things that you're like, what is going to happen? What's happening to Ace? Is he actually, because how much are you letting your suspension of disbelief kick in, where you're like, is Ace really safe in this scenario? The way that this intro is playing it up for the entire saga, from hearing about it in Amazon Lily all the way to Marineford, there's so much time saying, okay, Ace is in this situation, there's so many odds to overcome, but it's One Piece. Of course, we're the protagonist. Of course, we'll overcome the odds and save Ace. No, it doesn't happen. Very warranted. It was a very pivotal moment within the series. So I think like having the end of the theme show the struggles of like Impel Down and everything that's going on in Impel Down, showing Luffy's struggles as the song like shifts. and then showing Marineford as those are the odds to overcome after they find themselves on a piece of the world that they really just did not expect to get into, like waking up from that dream. It just hits so hard. I just think it works really well. So it's top of 8 here. Okay, I was just looking at like the next few intros that I wanted to cover, and I'll sort of cover too, like kind of linearly, because we were just talking about one day. We are just talking about Kaze wo Sagashito. I think then going into the post time skip with linearly with We Go and Hands Up would actually work really well. We Go, an S tier banger. It's gonna go right here. The banger that is We Go. Okay, listen. I remember when, I was reading the manga for like post Marineford, but I was like, okay. Then I was going to the One Piece wiki. I was seeing like when should I start watching like post time skip, because I want to see what they do with the last episode of the first episode of the post. I like watched the last episode instead of reading the chapters, to see if they did anything special. Like the music, they did. It's pretty cool. And I watched like the first episode of the post time skip, and just going from like the end of pre time skip into like We Go as like a new beginning, like a new We Are. It's like the second chapter of the series. Just like the impact of like starting with another like monologue was so impactful, and the intro was filled with so much energy that Hiroshi Katsudani really knows how to lay all the energy on the table when he makes a song. Obviously there's other people on this track, but in terms of like, actual producers and everything going on, but like really knows how to bring the energy on a new era of the world of One Piece, a new era for these characters and everything that they aspire to do, because they've done the training. They've been separated for 2 years. They're so ecstatic to get back together and chase their dreams again after training for so long for this exact moment, for this exact purpose, and having that energy to just go, it really gets you in the moment. It was so exciting just watching the first episode of the post time skip. And just seeing that intro, and then Fishman Island kind of fell flat, and then that was kind of disappointing. But the intro was really good because there's like a restatement of the goals of the show, and it just hits so hard, especially when they wasn't expecting it. Like it's the intro of the first monologue of We Are, the first chapters of the manga restated in a different context, where they're just filled with so much energy. They're just so ready to go. And it's like releasing all the potential energy into kinetic energy. The only disappointing thing is like they just stored to fight another group of Marines, but that's whatever. These are cool. These action poses, they're cool. They're sick. They're awesome. Also, they literally put a :D in this song. That's an S tier song right there. I also love how the song itself takes you on a journey, right? Because it has these moments where it stops and it looks back in the ways that the other intros did unto themselves, but this one just like, it's filled with energy, but it still looks back at what they've done so far, and it just carries itself into a whole new era of the show. It was so good. It was so good. Definitely an S tier song. Amazing. Next, we got Hands Up, which is sort of the reason why I wanted to do it like chronologically between like We Go and Hands Up, because it seems like a backpedal at first, but not really, because it deals with a lot of the things in Kaze wo Sagashito, but then like in a very different mindset. So when looking at Hands Up, I really like, because it's one of my favorites. It really lays into a lot of the things that are like the Straw Hats hold within each other together as a collective, right? Because when they're saying hands up, it's like when we gather our dreams, we can all make them possible if we're together, right? Like when they can make their dreams one because they're all helping each other accomplish their dreams, because they all put their hands up as a collective because they're all on this journey together. They're all here to support each other. I think it's just very nice. It's a very nice intro. I just love, like, I love that little animation where it's like Luffy and all the Straw Hats walking in the line, and then like Luffy just grabs them. It's just very nice. And he does the same thing in like the Egghead bumpers too. He's a stretchy guy. Of course, he can like hug all his friends at once. That's crazy. Yeah, it's one of my favorites. It's probably gonna go right behind Kaze wo Sagashito. It does something interesting in the beginning where it shows all their Straw Hats working on their dreams on the ship together individually, because they're all still working on their dreams, but they're still all under the same flag. They're under the same roof. They're all the Straw Hats now, and they can be separate, but still together. They can still be together, you know, in their hearts as they work on their dreams, right? Because they're all on the same ship. They're all under the same flag. They're all one piece. Oh, that's sort of like referencing the lyrics of Kokoro no Chizu as well, in terms of like the meaning of it. I like it a lot. Since we're looking at all the things that the shots have done before and the exact energy that they have within themselves, let's talk about We Are 2018, or not 2018. Let's talk about We Are 2008. The We Are 2008 definitely took a while to grow on me. It's something that I didn't really understand why they chose to do it at the time that they did, or like even at all, because it was an anniversary for the manga, I'm fairly sure. But like, why do We Are again? We had the Straw Hat version, but like, why now? Like, why is it even happening, right? But I think something that's really interesting, where it really took a moment to look back on everything as they were finding their last crewmate for a very long time, right? Because when Brooke joins the crew, that's the last time someone joins the crew for the next like 10 years. Like in the anime, because this is like Thriller Bark is like 2008, and when did Jinbei join in like the manga or the anime? I don't even know. It was an extremely long time from then, because no one knew Jinbei was going to join the crew till like the end of Fishman Island. That was like way later. So as I guess the people like looking at the Straw Hats that have joined and the position that they were when they're going to Thriller Bark, everything is going their way. Like in Thriller Bark, when I mean like everything's going their way, I mean they're taking out these foes that were so impressive. They're taking out warlords. They're taking out the world government's resting grounds, right? There's so many things happening and everything's going their way, and the fact that they feel capable, right? At this point in the show, until Kuma shows up, right? But they feel so capable, and having this victory lap of like with We Are, I think really lays into the mindset of they really felt like they could take on the world in this moment before everything that happened inside of the archipelago, before Kuma, before nothing happened, before everything that was to come. Having this victory lap of self-assurance for themselves that they are on this journey together and they can accomplish what they want to accomplish. We Are, the way that it was produced, I think fits really well with this point in the series. I think it works. I think at the time that they did it, I think it's gonna go here and near like mid top high A. A bit about the production and how the song was like produced. Again, I wasn't really feeling it at first, but when you look back on it, especially like this only really hit like post time skip for me. I only really felt this way once I was in like Punk Hazard. I'm pretty sure like Fishman Island, Punk Hazard. Having this sweeping sort of like digital vocal on it, and having the production like lay in with the extra beats as between the song where it shows all the previous opponents, because in the original We Are, it was like, you know, Arlong, it was like Dong Krieg, it was Dragon, and then it shows like the flag. But here, it shows many of the opponents that they faced, you know, because they had like Eno in there, and a few others. And I think having those extra beats sort of like to one up the opponents in We Are shows they've really gone through a lot and they feel capable in this moment. Like they really are on this cruise and everything's going their way and nothing's really stopping them, right? They go through hard times, but they always come out of them bettering themselves by the end. So I think it works. It's not for everyone. Doesn't really need to, but I think it works. And while we're talking about We Are again, let's talk about episode 1000's We Are. This is very cool. If I didn't know that this existed when it showed up, it would have been very cool, because like it's during the raid, I'm like, oh, it's episode 1000. What are they gonna do for episode 1000? When the episode is really just like an excuse to be like, look at us, we're the Straw Hats. And nothing really happens in the episode. They really just stretched out like half a chapter of them doing cool stuff. But I will say, like during the actual episode, the fact that that was the first time they had the Strats had a stand together panel since like I don't even know. What was the last time they had a panel like that in the series? Was it Punk Hazard, like Fishman Island? I don't even know. But for the entirety of post time skip, that's the second time that all the Straw Hats have gathered, but the first time they've stood together as a unit taking on a force in the entirety of post time skip since like Fishman Island, which was huge. That's like half the series. And skipping over like one of my favorite moments of the series, which I think was episode 957. Was it 957? Or was it like 973 or something? Whatever. Where like they actually like take the time to induct Jinbei and the crew. That's like one of my favorite moments. That's the first time they actually, all the Straw Hats are in one place since early Dressrosa. Like the raid is the first time they've done something as a collective since like Dressrosa. They didn't even go through Dressrosa as a unit. Having this intro take place when it did, sort of like at their first big stand. If I didn't know, if I wasn't spoiled and I didn't watch this intro like a couple times beforehand, it would have been really impactful because it's sort of, we've gone through 1,000 episodes of this series following this crew, and the fact that 2018 basically says, like, we're so capable in this moment, we're gonna treat ourselves to a victory lap because we're almost unstoppable. In my mind, it takes, like, the We Are 2018 takes place, like, how they feel about their journey until right before Kuma shows up. Because a lot of people might say, that is not thematically relevant, because what the Straw Hats took away from Enies Lobby and Thriller Bark is that they need there to be there to support Luffy. They need to work on themselves in terms of their strength and their capability to support Luffy. But those definitely are still there. Like, those feelings are definitely still there within the actual context of the narrative. But in my mind, another side of the coin is the fact that they still have the capability to become better. In their heads, they're starting to think, hey, we should probably work on ourselves to be more capable as a unit, because this is the first time the Shots are fighting together, not just having individual battles like in Enies Lobby, but they have to fight together to fight Oars. They had to do group attacks to fight Oars in Thriller Bark, and that was a very big portion of the arc, was them working together for really the first time as a unit, and having the nothing happen moment be so impactful between, like, that's too much to get into right now, but I think having We Are as the point of, like, we do feel so capable before we need to, like, take a look at ourselves and say, hey, we really can't go forward unless we work on ourselves, right? But them feeling so confident in We Are, I think that's where it solidifies its place. But We Are, for episode 1,000, was genuinely like a look back on their journeys before the height of their journey. And when I say the height, I don't necessarily mean the best moments or like the apex of the actual journey, but in terms of, this is the point in their journey where they are seasoned pirates. They've gone through so many things, but the next thing that's in front of them is the pinnacle of the pirating world, right? And having a look back on everything that came before in a fresh new way in this moment of the series works so well, because they're still on the same journey that we started this all out on, but they're so much more experienced in everything that they've done, and they, in their hearts and minds and bodies, are prepared for anything that's to come. And We Are just fits that. I think that's like, here. Actually, no, I'm gonna put down the 2008 remix. I'll put We Are. Actually, you know what? No, it's just going with We Are. It's just going with We Are. It's just that good. It reimagines like the actual first intro. I just think puts it up way more. And it bumps everything up, especially with, like, instead of Luffy punching the Fuchsia Village monster, but instead punching Kaido, it just works. Let's do the pirate rap. The pirate rap's S tier. No, it's like A tier. No, actually, no, it's A tier. There's nothing wrong with a fun song. It's like early 2000s. Every popular anime has to have like a rap in there somewhere. It's like the Pokemon rap. There's the One Piece pirate rap. I don't have much to say about it. Okay, yeah, I feel like this tier list is like top loaded with like S tiers. You know what? I'm a One Piece fan. It's peak. And that's where I kind of go with Jungle P. Because that's actually kind of what I want to talk about, Jungle P. specifically. Really, my relationship with One Piece started to change in Skypiea, and then Water 7 100% changed that, and then Jingle P, and Thriller Bark, kind of like rest in a place in my mind where my journey of watching One Piece, right? Like my journey. I liked One Piece. I'm one of those people that say, oh, I liked One Piece from episode 1 because it did things a little differently. I wasn't really expecting One Piece to do that. So like, oh, I kind of like it from episode 1. And then, like episode 37 in Arlong Park, maybe go, oh, the series can actually have some really good writing. I'm sticking with the series. That moment was very impactful to me. I am 100% sticking with the series. And then I got to the end of Alabasta, and I'm like, I'm definitely watching all 1,000 episodes or whatever. I'm like sticking with the series to the end. And then I get to Skypiea, and I'm enjoying the series on the episode-to-episode basis. And I think Skypiea is one of my favorite arcs still today. I think Skypiea is I just really like Skypiea. That's a whole other conversation to have another day. But I really started to enjoy the journey. Not that I didn't before, but starting with Skypiea, I really started to enjoy the journey on an episode-to-episode basis of One Piece and like what it sort of like stood for and what it accomplished. And before getting into specifics until we actually reach Jungle P, getting into Water 7. Water 7 was one of my favorite anime arcs I've seen like ever. And when I say Water 7, I really just lump in Water 7 and Enies Lobby together, because it has so much going for it in terms of it really showed me how Oda really knows the characters that he's creating, and he knows the journey that he's crafting in the story. He knows what makes all the characters important to each other, and he knows what makes the story important. And being able to play with all of those elements and how the characters actually feel about one another and how they feel about the journey that they're on and obstacles that come in their way that thwart their relationship with each other, and the importance of that, the importance of the character writing of, hey, if we're gonna have a story like One Piece, we really have to know the characters to stick around with them for this long. We really have to know their relationship with each other to stick around for this long. They really have to function as a unit, and you have to like enjoying your time with them as the viewer. And Water 7 cemented that in so many different ways, through the conflict that they go through the people that oppose them, through everything that stands in their way, through Robin's history, and how she perceives herself compared to the rest of the crew, and how the crew feel about her. It cemented so many things that really made me fall in love with the series in a way that like Skypiea didn't, that even early One Piece all the way back in East Blue did not. And it really, that's what Water 7 is when I could confidently say that like One Piece started to be one of my favorite things, because it proved that Oda really knew what he was doing for the previous 300 episodes at that point, or however long it was. He really knew what made these characters important. And when you're an author and you don't just think about what's important to like your story that you're telling, but what's important to not just to the viewer, for the content, but what really, when you understand the characters in the world that you crafted and how you want to make the characters and the world feel tangible more than just for yourself, for the art that you're making, or just for the content that you're making for the viewer and what the viewers want, but for the sake of the characters within the story. That's what really spoke to me in Water 7. Like, it feels like a fully realized world where the author really wanted to highlight what was important to these characters. I keep mentioning that, but that's when it hit me, and that was the arc that made One Piece feel different from everything else that I've ever watched. That's even before Enies Lobby. I was just talking about like Water 7 into Enies Lobby. But when you're writing off such a high, going into the next arc is always going to be a challenge. Especially because I don't think like Thriller Arc's, the best arc in the series, where it's sort of like getting back to things in a very different way. Even though there's no getting back to things in One Piece. Whatever. The point that I wanted to make is Jungle P was the first intro that I watched after really falling in love with One Piece for what it is. And Thriller Bark had some of the first episodes that I was just thrilled to be part of this journey. And that's where Jungle P kind of sticks in my mind. That's my perspective on Jungle P, where that's when they started getting to the mindset of another episode of Peak. That's when it started. Where I was just glad to be watching One Piece. I was just glad to have it there. I was just glad to always be able to tune in whenever I wanted, because it really became that important to me as a person. Whatever, having Jungle P as that point in my mind where like that's when they started to sink these feelings in with One Piece. This is the intro that I relate to that time when I had so much One Piece left. Like I'm looking at like how much there is, but I didn't really care. That's when they stopped caring. I was just like, not that I was always looking at how much One Piece was there before, but when I'm watching Skype, I'm like, wow, that's a great arc. I'm like looking at all the other arcs I have left. I'm like, will there be another arc like that? And then Water 7 hits, and it's everything I was just talking about. And it made me really fall in love with One Piece. And then you have Jungle P, which is an intro that feels like a theme song that knows what it is and displays itself as the next step in the Straw Hats' journey. But there's still, in the pre-time skip, not aloof nature of themselves, but like because they're not quite aloof. They're just glad to be together, to be able to chase their dreams in a very just ambitious way that has no regard for the outcome, right? And not that the rest of the intros have no regard for the outcome, but especially when you get into Sub the Archipelago, they really have to start to considering everything that they're getting into, which I've talked about in the other intro analysis. This is not analysis. I think Jungle P was just the right stage in the journey, where, like I talked with One Piece, not One Piece, with We Are 2008, they feel that they are capable, and most of the Straw Hats don't know they don't know what's going to happen with Kuma. They don't know anything that's going to happen ahead, but they feel so capable in the fact that they just took on the government and they're just existing as a unit. Jungle P, as that way of them just like existing on this journey, I just think the intro displays that in a way that makes you just glad to be watching One Piece. The way that I was glad to be watching One Piece at this stage in the series. The way that like all the intros really lined up with how I viewed the series. And Jungle P just made me glad to watch on an episode to episode basis, even if I didn't like some of the stuff that was happening in Thriller Bark with with Absalom and everything that was happening there. Even when there are things I didn't like, I still enjoyed just watching One Piece for what it was. And like this is the point where it really hit me and where I really felt that way. It's not like S tier. I'm not gonna put it in S tier, but I just really like this intro. I really like the song because like it reminds me of that. It's like even when I watched it the first couple times, I already felt nostalgic for watching it at that time. I don't know why. Even on an episode to episode basis, I would just hate to skip Jungle P. I'll just watch it every time because I think it just really cemented those feelings. And I recognize that. I just wanted to sink in it. For what it is, it probably goes here, but I'm going to put it top of A for my own personal rating. I'm looking at this. Yeah, I'm probably going to bump Fight Together down under Jungle P. Kokoro no Chizu. No, I love Kokoro no Chizu. Jungle P I just have Jungle P bias. It's just great. I love the song. I think about it all the time. I don't listen to it all the time. I listen to Us in the Peak all the time. But after Us, the Peak, and Kokoro no Chizu, Jungle P is right there. I love this song. And We Go, I guess. I listen to We Go a lot. That's true. I do. Well, actually, true statement. I feel like if the local file put on Spotify for We Are was on Spotify, I think We Are would probably be my most listened to song on Spotify of all time. I mean, now there's the First Take version of We Are, which I still listen to a lot. But if that was on Spotify last year, from like August to December, it would have been over for my Spotify for the rest of the time. We Are would have just been my number one most listened to song of all time there. I like just the flow of the visuals because like they're not the craziest things you've ever seen. It uses a lot of the same tropes that are in a lot of other One Piece openings. I don't feel like it excels at any one thing at all, but I really like how there's a shot where it goes from left to right on the crew in the ship, and it mirrors like the Kokoro no Chizu shot, where it's like left to right and like Luffy's at the front. I like the shot, and it's the first opening. This shot. It's also the first opening with the Sunny, and even talking about like a lot of the visuals. because I was talking about like how I feel about like OP at the point, and I was watching One Piece as a whole, and like a macro perspective and micro perspective. Oh, yeah, this intro also runs for like 150 or 200 episodes on Crunchyroll specifically because they didn't have the rights to the other songs. I mean, they picked a good intro to lay into. I didn't want to skip it really, even when I was on like episode 180 of like Jungle P. I just think it shows so many like key traits of like what makes the Straw Hats the Straw Hats. It's just them like existing together. Oh, also has like this section, which actually I think they pulled it off. I think it works really well. Oh, I didn't even talk about how dynamic the song is. I love how dynamic and ever-changing that the song is. And I think it just works so well. That's one of the reasons why I like the song so much. It's so dynamic. I like this song, this part of the song, heard with like the sunny flying in the sky, even though this shot's fine. This is probably my favorite shot of the Straw Hats like looking forward, besides the Kokoro and the Jeju shot, was like after the sunny flies in the sky in the moonlight. After the coup de burst. Anyway, definitely one of my favorites, even though it's not like S tier. Okay, I'm looking at One Day, and lyrically, after I reinterpreted the lyrics, after, you know, it being that long, I think One Day should go up higher. Actually, you know, we'll reorganize the list later. You know what? Okay, I might as well do Share the World, and then we could do, like, the Dressrosa duo and the Wano trio. Because I haven't listened to the international openings, and I still haven't watched Film Red. There's a couple movies I still haven't watched. Now I need to get on that. Okay, let's talk about Share the World. Share the World, I'm just gonna throw it here. Pirate Rap, actually, okay, let's actually rate the Pirate Rap. Pirate Rap goes loopy. It's fun though. There's nothing wrong with the fun opening. I was looking at this intro, and I feel like there's literally way too much to say at once. Just looking at it. So let's just do a comprehensive watch through before we get like into it. I like how rhythmic it is and how it like transitions into like a wider expanse of like a wider scope of song later on in the actual song. And I like how it sets up so many elements and also foreshadows like stuff that happens in like Amazon Lily into like Impel Down. We're really starting to get into like the meat of the Summit War saga. I just think it works really well. There's so many vignettes that I can't wait to talk about here coming up and showing just like how the shots like function and exist. But anyway, let's just start. I like how it starts with like a music box, so it's almost like you're turning a music box back, or I don't know. It's just unique. It puts its own stamp on the actual production, and it stands out. Like I love visually like how creative this intro is too, because like lyrically it's saying like, oh, we're all chasing the one dream, right? We're all chasing our dreams together as one piece, right? But there's so much like visual flair with this intro that like they put a lot of thought into the visuals of this intro and how they just function, right? Because it's very visually different. Because here there's all these different character interstitials and vignettes that happen prior to them having like their names on the screen, but then they always have these brief descriptions, which is just so. They didn't have to do that. They really didn't have to do that, but they put so much effort into just all these little details, and something that is very different from like the cool animation that you see in like The Peak and in Us, and in like even stuff like Paint in Over the Top in Dreaming On. Like it's just a very different style, but it works so well. They thought out so much. The fact that like Zora's just yawning with a dog, like while they're on a park bench, like a dad looking after their kids, like what? That's crazy. Like having Robin grab Luffy as he's fishing when she's not even paying attention. It just, and I just love how everything flows into one another, because you have this really crazy scene with Kuma, right? Where looking back on this, like the blue that adds pop to the sort of like grayscale filter that they have on here, this monochrome filter, is so interesting because here, like, from what we know, looking back on South of the Archipelago, Kuma's really just trying to save them, right? And then he has to deal with these pacifistas that look just like him, impeding on his progress, knowing what we know now about Kuma and everything, with Sentomaru and Kizaru and everything that's happening at South of the Archipelago. This really is a great situation, because to the Straw Hats, this is like the worst moment of their lives, but Kuma really needs to land, like, you guys are not ready for this stuff. Like, you guys need to train. I don't care how you perceive me, but I will do my best to try to guide you guys. to try to guide Luffy's crew. And even in the moment when, they're all getting sent away, at first we just don't know what's happening because there's just a vague whoosh. I mean, can we use the pop route against Pearl and the Thriller Mark? But really just don't know what happens, right? Because it doesn't look like they die, but we don't know what happens to them. So even if they didn't die, the fact that the shots are being separated is so tragic in and of himself that Luffy's just powerless. And all the shots are powerless to help each other is so heartbreaking and heart-wrenching and so devastating enough that simple fact that they are not together is so impactful, speaks to how much we care about these characters and how they represent like this cold light in this monochrome aesthetic. I just think it works really well. Even if this is just like a Pacifista and not Kuma, it's a very gray situation. There's so many things that are impeding on this one moment. I also love out here in Zoro's, you could see Brook already. So it's like there's like some amount of continuity here. The same way that Luffy's fishing in this shot and he's wearing the same shirt and he has the same blue fishing pole as when Robin pulls him up. Like there's continuity. They like thought through all these interstitials and how they're all at like this cafe location except for Robin and Luffy. And Chopper. I love this transition where they're all hands in and it pans up to Luffy surfing with a little tube on him because obviously he's gonna fall. And then Brook and Chopper dive in, and then Usopp's already chasing after them, being like, bro, you guys cannot swim. Right, there's just so much happening in this intro at all times. Oh, and this is the first intro that introduces the worst generation, which is so huge because all of these characters are so important to the plot at some point or another, except for Uroge, which is probably gonna be the most important one. I'm calling it now. He's from a sky island. He's the only one who has not been introduced in the story. Crazy how Skypiea foreshadowed so many things, so many of the themes of the series and everything going ahead. I saw this thing the other day where someone was like, Imu has whatever the mother flame is powering, right? And the same way it destroyed Belusha, the same way it probably destroyed Ennie's lobby. It looks like a visual parallel with what I was gonna say Enero, with Enel in Skypiea with the beams of thunder and electricity. It looks the same, like visually. It gets the same thing across. So like near the end, what if so many like pirates and everyone across the world are being stuck in boats or being stuck at the Noah, and they're just on the Noah and combined when they're all on the same level playing field in the same situation in the same boat, they just see Imu destroy the landscape and destroy the world as they knew it, as they then come together, and then something along the lines happens where like Luffy frees the people, he gets access to like more land, either on the red line or maybe the water levels drop, where then maybe everyone, every race, every class of people are all on the same playing field in the same boat, and they all make amends on the actual land. I'm doing a terrible job of explaining this, but they make amends and they all share the one world. It works. Anyway, I did a terrible job of explaining that. The visual parallels between Enel's power in Skypiea with Imu's power, and how Skypiea just is a huge heaping reference for the end game of the series. And the only person in the worst generation who we haven't spent time with happens to come from a sky island, and this appeared once since when they saw Kaido jump from a sky island that was abandoned. He's gotta be important. Okay? He's got to be important. Uroge has to be important. Okay. Right, and introducing Amazon Lily. It's very cool how estranged this background is when, like, Luffy's the first person that Boa saw treat her as an actual human, without any regard to her actual history, how it introduces like the fish or tiger situation on top of the red line, everything like that, and introducing Impel Down. It's just an amazing cut right here. Oh my god, it's not a cut, it's a sequence, I think. But it's just so cool. It's just so good. And introducing the situation with Ace to the viewer immediately, I'm like, oh, what's wrong with Ace? There's like this intro is so packed with information, right? I just think it works really well. That's why I really didn't know like how to put this in to the tier list, because I'm kind of like, actually no, I'm raising it. Hold on. Oh, I'm thinking about it. It goes here. Really good intro. Next on to Wake Up, which I actually don't have that much to say other than it's very energetic, so much kinetic energy, but because it's like an anniversary song. What anniversary was it? Was it like 15 years? So it's sort of like an anniversary song where they look like stereotypical pirates in the intro. It's pretty fun, pretty energetic. I don't really have much to say about it though. I don't think it does much besides just being an energetic song. So like, I think I have to throw it in B. Hold on, let me rewatch it. I think one thing that does make this intro unique compared to all these other intros is that it literally pauses in the middle of the song to have like Luffy and Blackbeard yell at each other. And I think sometimes when they think about like, did Oda say, okay, in my mind, right? I'm someone who works at Toei. I'm like the director of this OP. And like, what if we have a portion in the song where we have like Luffy talk with the antagonist? And what if it's like someone from the world government? And Oda's like, no, it's gotta be Blackbeard. We still don't know if Imu's gonna be the final villain of the story or if Blackbeard is, right? Because every time we say it's gonna, the story's leading towards this person or this person, another thing wrenches up into the plot where we're like, okay, but imagine if it went this way. Like, okay, what if Imu has a devil fruit that like Blackbeard steals, right? That in of itself could be crazy. But there's so many ties, like, it looks like Imu, who's the head of the world government, the big bad of the series, like, the Straw Hats had challenged the world government by the end of things. They've been doing it for the whole series. They have to liberate the world and find the One Piece, but is that going to come before or after they find the One Piece? Is the One Piece the key to doing that, to freeing the world, to liberating the world? Like, or is it a battle against pirates at the end of the day? It's a pirate show. Is it a battle against pirates? I don't know. I don't know. Because there's still so much we don't know about Blackbeard that's been seeded out very sparingly through the series and very specific intentional features, like why doesn't he sleep? Why can he have 2 devil fruits? Like, there's so many things that like are so deliberate with Oda's delivery of the information that we know about Blackbeard that his inclusion in the song is insane. That makes me think maybe he's the big bad. Maybe it's Emo. I don't know. I'm not even talking about the OP at this point. So yeah, it gets a B, but like none of these songs in B are like bad. I like them all. It's just not as good as all the other intros. Again, I listened to the song a bit because it's very energetic, but really not much to say. Moving on to the next song, Hard Knock Days. I feel like a lot of people say it gets slept on because it's just kind of like okay, because yeah, it's a hard knock life for us. But so Hard Knock Days goes in like B tier, really because I just don't really like the flow of the song. I actually just have to rewatch this one to like actually remember what happens. Okay, so one thing after rewatch that really settled in that I didn't really recognize before after looking at the lyrics was basically like the Straw Hat's not settling for the ordinary, which I think something it's a very nice switch up from the usual like themes of the actual openings, because the openings are about chasing your dreams, but Hard Knock Days is about not settling for the ordinary, which I think is kind of a good switch up. I don't think I'm gonna put this one up a bit more now. I don't think it's crazy as the jump is like one day, but I think it's pretty good. And I think it goes with superpowers, and they're kind of close together. Where I feel like it's just something that's slightly different with what the One Piece openings have been doing normally. That really settles into the post time skip vibe, because again, like pacing in post time skip just takes a nose dive down a cliff. So like you're mainly reading the manga and then watching the openings. So I feel like they're kind of like disjointed whenever you do that, but they're still effective. Like you can still watch the openings and read the manga. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But having that there, I feel like I didn't like get that because maybe I wasn't like invested in this intro because like Dressrosa was like such a slog to get through because you're dealing with like the battle royale and all the actual good plot stuff that's buried underneath the bloat that Oda's putting there. Because Dressrosa is really good when you don't have to worry. We're not focusing on the bloat that Oda's just shoving in Dressrosa because I don't know why. So I guess I was just kind of winded from that. I'm like, I just want to get through this portion, and I really focused on the end of Dressrosa, and then I like watched it. So I didn't really remember the actual themes of the OP. Maybe because I was just like fell out of just Rosa, but I think it's pretty cool that it switches the actual lyrics up compared to a lot of the other openings. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so next we have we have the One Trio. I need a second to rewatch all these, and I want to collect my thoughts specifically on Over the Top because like I want to do Over the Top justice because Over the Top does a lot, and I really loved Over the Top. Over the Top gave me a feeling that not just because it was a Hiroshi Katsudani song, but they gave me a feeling that WeGo did, where it's really like knowing a little bit of the plot beforehand, and especially going through on an episode by episode basis. Over the Top is really like, I feel like it was really, really thought out, where it's like we're at this point in the journey where we can only go over the top of the hill, right? We can only beat Kaido. We have gotten so far in our journey where we have to go over the top in order to continue, in order to live out our dreams. Give me a second. I'm gonna rewatch these three. Spoiler: Over the Top's an S. Yeah, I think something to note is like this intro, because I made the decision before starting Wano that I would watch Wano. I made that decision before getting to it. I was reading Whole Cake, and then I would watch the musical section whenever I would get to one in Whole Cake. But I made the decision ahead of time. I was gonna watch Wano. So I watched the last episode of the Whole Cake, and then transitioned into them climbing the hill, and then just getting introduced to this intro and the sheer gravitas that it carried with the art style, with the animation and everything. But I think starting with Luffy breaking out of like prison bars was so different from everything. And it's still then the fact that Wano might be something completely different from what I was expecting it to be. And I knew that going into Wano was the length of like an entire series in and of itself. So just like seeing that ahead of time before you get into the actual themes of Over the Top, it was very surprising, and it led Wano in the direction that I wasn't expecting it to go in, especially because Luffy literally fights Kaido in Act 1 of Wano. But anyway, we'll talk about that in a second, because I loved how the intro made you second guess what you thought was normal for an arc of One Piece, right? And not just because the arc did it itself, but the OP laid itself into that. Where in the intro, you see, oh yeah, Luffy's fighting the big bad. This happens, like, the show has to fight Jack in the Zoe opening, when obviously they don't do that in the show. They don't really touch Jack, because Jack's an idiot. Okay, that's Jack slander. But, when you look at the end of this, and you're like, wait, Luffy's fighting Kaido, he's going Gear 4, it's cool OP stuff, but then, wait, hold on a second. What's going on here? It made me second guess, like, if it actually happened this early in the story, because I'm like, what's going on? So even just on a surface level, like, I think it played with your expectations for an opening, which I thought was very cool. Because you're in a completely new situation. Like, Wano is a completely isolated country, so the arc feels self-contained in and of itself. Even though it's reaching out from so many things that were in the entirety of post-time skip, because this arc has been being built up to since, like, Punk Hazard. Okay, so I kind of said a lot before about accidentally talking about like the actual themes of the arc in terms of One Piece, but in terms of like the visual deconstruction, there are a lot of action shots, but I think it still serves the point of the opening, because compared to other arcs in One Piece that just like kind of play like, oh, here's the world government, here's Shanks, here's Ace, here's Sabo, here's Akainu, here's like all the people that we know, right? When it comes to the action shots here, in terms of like instead of like the shots compared to the characters right here, it builds intrigue because we're dealing with so many different unknowns that aren't really prevalent in a lot of other openings, because it builds the intrigue when we're entering into Wano, right? And then you compare that to something like the Whole Cake intros, which try to do something similar, because there's so many different characters and elements. It's not as, they're not building intrigue, they're not building this mystery around these characters, they're so just showcasing them, right? And I feel like this is where it becomes completely subjective in terms of like how it displays these characters within the arcs, because in Wano I feel like since we're dealing with so many unknowns, it's like, okay, this character is here, why are all these characters here and why are they doing this action, right? Because in Hope, you see these characters, but they're sort of just existing, right? With the exception of like Big Mom and then Sanji walking with the credits over his cape, right? Like you don't really get a sense of what's happening with these characters. But with these action shots, the way that they're composed and directed not only indicates like any sort of like movement, but they're actually showing like they have agency within the plot because of their construction when they're aligned with each other. Like with oh jeez, I forgot his name. But whatever the guy with the straw man devil fruit, when he's paired with Kid and Law, you know that they're gonna be within the story with these characters, right? Even if, you know, much less for Kid in Act 1, because Kid's just kind of thrown in there. Kid doesn't even really appear till Act 2, I'm pretty sure. He has like glimpses here and there, but he's not really in the story, right? But you get a sense of the action with the way it's composed, where you have Law transitioning into all these other characters that are so relevant within the plot, right? So the way it's composed, even when you look at like, oh, tropes that have been done in One Piece before, I feel like it still serves its purpose, because it's showing these characters in relation to each other, or the fact that they have agency within the plot because of the actions that they're taking, right? And since there's so many unknowns, since this is a completely isolated country that we've only heard from word of mouth throughout the entire series, having this slow unveiling of all these different features works really well. Now, the downside of this intro and the Wano trio of intros is because around the time of, when was it? Well, starting ages ago in pre-time skip, they extended the intros to have no outro. So a lot of this intro is just showing what happens in this episode, which I think is a detractor from the intro when what's there works so well. Because like, why are there clips from the current episode playing as a preview? Like, it's like you're kind of spoiling people. So I think that's the only major downside of this intro, and I think for most people what keeps it from being S, but what's there works so well with settling in all the elements that are going to be in the arc, right? Like you have the suspense of seeing Luffy break out of prison as the intro, building intrigue to what happens with Kaido. So you're the intro really plays with your expectations overall. And even when it comes to the lyrics, it's talking about like putting everything that you have all on the line, even though you're going into this unknown world, because at the end of the day, when you're facing up against all these opponents that are unknowns to you, you can't prepare for anything. You have to bet everything all on the line and surpass them and go over the top. And if you're going to be at the top of the world of One Piece, if you're going to become the Pirate King, if you're going to achieve your dreams, right, you have to surpass all those preconceptions that you had before and surpass everyone that surrounds you within that thing if you want to actually achieve your dream or your goal at the end of the day. So I think all of these things combined still make it S tier for me overall, right? So I think it sits right at the bottom of S tier. Now onto Dreaming On. So overall, I think Dreaming On is a pretty solid OP. It does fall in line with a lot of the other tropes that are found in other OPs, but I think it has its own flair to it, which make it better. Because there's a lot of really great animated sequences and cuts, which is something that becomes like a staple of a lot of One Piece intros after a time, because all of them are animated really well, but they each have their own distinct flair that is often seldom seen in a lot of post-time skip intros, besides like We Go and I think Hands Up. But that's why I sort of like transitioned from Share the World onto these, because Share the World has its own visual thematic elements that I think a lot of these Wano intros that also share, and you know, especially things more recently like with The Peak and with Us. But like honestly, I want to talk about a couple of the animated cuts really quickly, because they're really great. Actually, I didn't even mention the super satisfying. Okay, no, actually, going back to Over the Top for a second, I love, like, there's this one clip near the beginning when it shows all the shots in a line as Kikimaru is, I'm pretty sure, yeah, as Kikimaru's like running with Otama, Zoro, and Luffy, and like Frankie's just like, the way that Frankie actually puts his hands together at the right time in the song, it's so good. Hold on. Oh, it's just so nice. Anyway, I really like that portion of the song. So here, when we get to this point in the actual story, we're then dealing with all the Straw Hats and all the Scabbards kind of training and and getting things in line to actually fight and defeat Kaido, right? Because since we're in like Act 2, we're in like the brunt of the story, even though that typically it's the brunt of the actual story, but in Wano it's like, no, Act 3 is 100 episodes. So anyway, so when we get to the brunt of like the actual planning stages for the story, this intro is really interesting because it's like basically all the pieces are being collected, right? We're past the exposition, we're not in the battle, but it's sort of all of the pieces being aligned, or being gathered to be aligned, when we get to the actual raid, when we get to Onigashima. So when you have shots like this, it really helps lend the fact that all of the people within the story are actually trying to gather and defeat the overcoming force that is, Kaido, that is, the Shogun. It's obviously the scabbards aren't in this shot, but I think this intro does a really good job at showing that, especially when we deal with stuff like Gold Roger and Whitebeard are in this intro. Anyway, and one thing that I think is notable when considering an intro is how the intro evolves over time. This intro directly changes over time, not just with changing like elements of Gold Roger and Whitebeard later that match with the current elements in the story, but the way that the scabbards literally shift and change as we learn more about them and which scabbard is a scabbard and which scabbard is not a scabbard. And I think that really lends to like how it's really interesting to watch this intro and you're like, wait, something feels off about this, or they're changing this element to align with the story, which some people might like, some people might not like, but then just really interesting animated cuts, like this whole sequence with the Law, Kid, and Luffy trio, just a really great animated sequence, I guess. I'm talking about a lot about animation with this intro because I feel like it's kind of carried by it, in terms of the actual storytelling going on here, because while the storytelling is definitely has a lot of intent that's going on right now, I feel like it's less so than over the top as a whole, because it's showing a lot of the separate elements of the story rather than string together a whole story, because the separate elements of the story are very impactful, because you have stuff like the scabbards, you have stuff like everything that's going on right now within the people in Wano and the Straw Hats, but because the story revolves around the people within Wano so much and how they relate to not really, but how they want to uphold Odin's values and goal, I feel like it overshadows everything else that happens at this point in the intro, because it's the most important part of the story. But then you have really cool cuts like this, which makes me want to make something like that. But then you have another one of the actual spoiler segments where it's like, oh, here's what actually happens in the actual show, which is kind of annoying. But anyway, so with this action sequence playing, that's sort of just like action that's going to be like in the raid while they're wearing like cool like Wano outfits. As a good point for me to mention, like I guess this is one of my favorite songs. I say one of my favorite because like even top 10 would still be like one of my favorite songs itself, removed from like it as an opening theme. But I just really like the flow of the song. I think it's really good. And then we actually have a sequence that alludes to the actual raid, and I think one of the things that's like very undervalued or maybe overlooked within the song, I really like this detail at the end with the smile fruit. I really like that detail, because when you're first watching it, you're like, why is there an apple there? Like, is that a smile fruit? Is that smile fruit? Like, there's clearly something on the end that makes it look like a smile fruit, but just the indication of like an apple and smile fruits, and foreshadowing that in this intro is very cool, because at this point we were dealing with smile fruits in Act 1, but we didn't know everything about them that would be revealed in like Acts 2 and 3. I believe at the time we didn't even know that I was about to say Gastino, that Caesar was working on them and how they were working on them with the Shogun of Wano at the time, and how they were very, I forget their name, but they were just very deliberate in their use, because I feel like a good complaint of Wano is like there's so much happening, and the fact that I just feel like since there were so many elements leading to the Shogun's atrocities, like I feel like this one small detail in the intro was a lot more tasteful than all the other things, because it was like this small, like, yes, the smile fruits were a terrible thing and they happened, but we are slowly going to unveil what happened as the story progresses, which is pretty cool. But overall, it's a good intro, but I don't think it's as good as a lot of the other intros when it comes to like visual storytelling or anything like that. The song's good, but I don't think you could be strictly carried by a song the way like Kokoro no Chizu is, because this thematically ties into the actual themes of the entire show at that point. Meanwhile, Dreaming On does do that, just to a much lesser extent. When you're trying to juggle so many of the things that are happening in Wano, that Over the Top could do, because I feel like it was focusing on Act 1 and the stakes that were set when entering Wano. When you're trying to juggle everything that is Wano, it's kind of hard to do. So I'm going to put Dreaming On in the bottom of it. Next, we have the last OP that I'm going to be covering, because I haven't watched the international covers and I haven't watched Film Red. But this Paint. Okay, I think Paint is like a really beautiful intro. I think it's pretty good. I think the visual storytelling is definitely extremely better than it was in Dreaming On. And overall, actually, the more I look at Dreaming On, no, it goes here. Actually, no, it goes here. Actually, no, it goes here. It goes here. I think the Paint has definitely elevated the visual storytelling, and just the it felt way more deliberate trying to juggle all the elements that were paired with the raid, because not only are we dealing with, the shots going into the raid and dealing with the Scabbards and the Toby Roppo and Yamato and everything that came before leading up to this moment, because then we're dealing with, there's more shots of like Gold Roger, Whitebeard, Rocks, and Shanks and things like that. But I think the overall like focus is trying to finish basically all the loose ends and struggles that you might be having with something that you wanted to accomplish, right? And I think that fits at this point in the story of the raid, because since there's too many things happening in the raid, I think like having an intro like this really balances it out extremely well, because you could definitely tell that there's a lot of passion baked behind the direction of all the Wano intros. But especially I feel like this one, they sort of took the confusion from like Dreaming On and really like piled it into a really great story that's sort of like overlapping between the things that brought them to this point, the history that sort of haunts the events of this raid, in terms of, like I said before, with all the previous strong pirates, like Roger, Whitebeard, Rocks, Shanks, all that leading into these events that are happening, to sort of get Wano back on its stead, because trying to catch up with Odin's ideals and everything that's on the line really gets enforced within this intro, especially then as you see Yamato, who, as we see through his development, right, still wants to be Odin, even though I wish there was significantly more progression, if any progression at all, with his character. But we see Yamato's development, right, within the intro, which is still important. The way that they were developed, as in wanting to be Odin and idolizing Odin because of the things that they've done, right? And not, he didn't necessarily take all the lessons that he should have from looking at Odin's story, but still wrapping that all in, moving forward and committing to these ideals, right? Because you have Luffy, who's looking to the Straw Hats as the source of encouragement and the thing that drives Luffy, the way that we discussed in like Fight Together, right? But still, like, Luffy has that, and all the people in Wano have that, but they're all struggling. When all the people in Wano, like the Scabbards, and all the people that came to help them with the raid, when they're put in this raid, everything, their entire country and their livelihoods are on the line. But for the Straw Hats, since they get to inspire them with so much positivity, right? You see that reflected into Luffy as we see the Straw Hats, how they're just happy to be together within this intro, the same way that they were happy to be together at the start of the raid. The Straw Hats are sort of back to the way that, not in the way of them reverting to their previous selves within Brief Time Skip, but the way that they feel confident when they're with each other, right? And not only are they confident with each other, they have the confidence of their own capability to split off and tackle their own objectives within the actual raid, but still not be worried that they'll get back together. This is not a Thriller Bark situation where they all have to work together to defeat the big bad, right? That's not a situation like Enies Lobby where they're all fighting for their lives, right? Though they are fighting for their lives in a very different sense. They all have the confidence that they place within each other, that they're all capable to do the things that they're doing within the raid, which I think comes across with how they're just happy to be with each other within the actual intro, right? And I just think it works really well. So yeah, I just love how near the end, just sort of wrapping this up, near the end, especially how the shots like launch into the sky with a coup de verse or coup de vent, it really settles in the fact that the Straw Hats are sort of like not the North Star of the people of Wano's ambitions, because that's not right. That's not what it is at all. But sort of how they get to inspire others by living with each other, right? By being with each other. They're not the source of hope, they're the source of change, which I think is it's a very fine line that One Piece walks. But I think being the source of change, being the people that help bring liberation to these people by their active involvement, not because they are responsible for the action. I think it really is important to note, because the shots are the guiding light of change, as Luffy's the warrior of liberation. So I think that's very important to talk about at the end of things, especially because it kind of wraps things back up with, we covered the peak first, then we're covering paint last, and they sort of fall into each other. So I think, honestly, I didn't even plan for that. That just worked out. So if you actually didn't watch the whole thing, this is just for me though. That's sort of, whatever. It's for me, but if someone is watching this, I didn't plan for that. Anyway, paint, I think it's here. Where would it be? I think it's right here. Actually, no, hold on. Let's move up. Moving up. It feels right here. No. It goes here. Paint goes here. And I might, okay, now that we are actually finished with most of the tier list, okay, we did the whole tier list. I'm gonna shift things around because it's kind of top loaded. It is top loaded. Crazy Rainbow, the metaphor for Rainbow, I think it's pretty good. Okay, we'll move I keep moving the pirate rap down because at first I was like A tier. It's a fun pirate rap, but I keep moving it down. Just wait. I'll wake up, Michael, and see. Yeah, Wake Up's a C. Crazy Rainbow is, Crazy Rainbow is better than Wake Up. I like the song, but you can't be just carried by a song like Dreaming On. Like, I might move Dreaming On even further back, because I like One Day After re-examining its lyrical intent, right? Whether it was planned or not, to match with post Marineford, if they were reading, I wasn't there when those were being released, if they had that context. The same way like Us has the context of a current Egghead, right? And they can cram all of the things into Us. No, I think I keep it at this. I think I'm locking in this tier list. So to celebrate, let's watch Us. It's so good. This still blows my mind every time I watch it. It blows my mind. Like okay. We need to talk about this. The creative direction on how they were able to infuse elements so seamlessly with each other in such creative ways, because I think Megumi Ishitani directed this, if that's their name. But like, whenever they direct something, it blows my mind. Oh my gosh. Okay, hold on. I don't know if I'm going to talk about the whole intro, but just there's so many things happening on screen at a single moment that just compound how special this world is. And just like as a piece of art, this intro, because you have Egghead embedded within the text, but like moving on to like this robot actually carrying the ship. I love how the robot carries the Sunny. The title is always in the background, but then where the robot is with the Sunny, it has left to right movement that carries with this actual movement of this shadow lighting up the title. There's so many guiding lines. So it guides the Sunny. The robot guides the Sunny. The shadow follows the same line slightly before. Your eyes are then guided because Frankie jumps in from the opposite side, which then carries your eye to look at Luffy, who then looks at Vegapunk, so you're centered, and then you look at the actual player select screen, which the satellites are, because the satellites are like sort of characters in the character select because they represent the part of Vegapunk, and they're coming out of his head. Like, that's crazy. And the fact that these aren't even just random models, this is literally a moment within the series. This is a moment that happens. Like, I think Lilith looks at Shaka like this in an episode, right? Everything was thought about. I don't understand how someone thought about this. Like, and then, like, you have things appearing for frames at a time. Like, then his brain Vegapunk comes up and it unlocks the vault behind it, leading into CP0 trying to capture him. And then, oh my gosh. And then, I don't know if this was intentional, but like there's more light on Stussy because Stussy is actually... Oh wait, no, because Lucci's behind there. I was like, I don't know if there's more light on Stussy than Kaku because, you know, Stussy's actually a traitor from CP0 because Stussy's actually helping Vegapunk, whatever. And then it turns into a reflection where they're like Luffy and Chopper are looking in at CP9 as a reflection of something in the lab, and then they're... There's so much happening. They could use this for all of Egghead. They could just do it for all of Egghead. I still don't know if they're going to change the intro whenever we get to stuff with the Gorosei, because like currently in manga, it's popping off. Just seeing the entirety of One Piece represented by the outfits. I can't even speak. I can't even form coherent thoughts because of how good it is. Like just rewinding time through the outfits and them stepping into the terrain that was in the arc. It's so good. Luffy's in Marineford, then he steps into Fishman Island, and then all the other characters appear, and they step into Fishman Island because that's like, you know, the first arc with these outfits, but then they step into Punk Hazard. And then Fishman, the way that they chose that Fishman Island would be the centerpiece, so that you see all the Straw Hats in their original post time skip outfits as sort of the base, but then they keep switching to different outfits. It's so cool. The only exception is Jinbei, because Jinbei appears in this outfit when he's supposed to be in Punk Hazard, but obviously he wasn't in Punk Hazard. But actually, no, technically he was in Punk Hazard in the manga, but he wasn't. The anime, he wasn't there at Punk Hazard, but like he's within the story in the manga specifically, just in cover stories. But like, oh my gosh, it's so much. Oh my gosh, and there's so many match cuts. How did they pull off the match cuts? I don't even get it. And the way that Sabo looks, oh my, the way that it transitions, the flames transition into Sabo, which is crazy because obviously Sabo has the flame fruit, but then it transitions into the crows, and the crows are also smolders coming off of the flames because of the other Revolutionary Army member, which is literally composed of the crows, transitioning into the seagulls for the world news, transitioning into what's his face? I can't think. It's too good because Walpole was one of the only original 3 people that saw the Gorosei's true forms, with Cobra and Sabo, and then Vivi's getting lumped into it because it's Vivi, right? Because she's an important character, and I can't wait for them to reunite at some point. And then, oh my gosh, and then literally all the things that were happening at O'Hara with Dragon and Vegapunk, and then literally, and if you think I'm freaking out now, I think the most of, okay, this might seem like a hyperbole, but I don't think I've ever freaked out as much watching a piece of entertainment or content and art as it was when I was reading this in the manga. The sequence of chapters from just learning about Emu in this room in Egghead and seeing everything from Sabo's perspective with everything that was laid out, and us learning like stuff that was like tinfoil hat level theory from like Fishman Island on, with everything that Koba confronted the Gorosei and Emu about, legitimately blew my mind. I was so excited. I was sitting in this chair. I was so ecstatic. I literally, I couldn't sit still. I don't think I've ever been as engaged in a piece of media. I was reading like, touching on like 5 or whatever chapters of just Cobra meeting with the Gorosei and Emu. That was genuinely one of the most insane things I've ever seen. Not a hyperbole. Insane. And the fact that it was, I think one of the most impactful chapters we've had since then was last week's chapter 1113, where it revealed that the world was going to sink. We haven't gotten the rest of the speech from Vegapunk, but like everything falls into line from that. The entire series falls into line. Like there's supportive evidence for that claim since everyone's talking about it since Crocus. I just can't. I just can't. It's too good. It's too good. It's too good. It's not even good for the lore. It's good for the actual story content. We're getting character development and progression, especially with Hachinosu, with like Kobe and Garp and Aokiji. There's so much happening. There is so much happening in this arc. This is the best One Piece has been since like Mother 7 and Marineford. And it's not even over. There's so much left. There's gonna be like a war. What's happening with Noah? What's happening with the ancient weapons? Is Emo using an ancient weapon? Is that Uranus? I don't know. It definitely totally destroyed Eni's lobby though. Is it symbolize? Is it not symbolize? Is it the parallel for Eneru? Like I was talking about before. I said Eneru. Enel? Like I was talking about before. Because the way that Enel strikes down and destroys the Sky Island, the same way that Emu might destroy the world, and everyone, all the races and classes of people are gonna be in the same boat, and then they have to solve that, and Luffy's gonna liberate the world, and then whatever the One Piece is at the end of the day. Is One Piece the world? Is One Piece the land that was submerged under the sea? Is the One Piece a manga? Is it Bink Sake? I don't know. Oh, I just, even like this cut where it's Kobe to Vivi to Bonnie is so crazy. It's so crazy. Because it's Vivi looking through like the destroyed hole that was at the reverie into Bonnie getting Kuma's memories, which is, I don't feel qualified to talk about that. Isn't exactly profound either. It's just very impactful. It's very well written, and the way that Oda could still write some of the best pieces of literature I've read in One Piece that started as like a normal shonen manga, that's just been so impactful is insane. It's wild, and I think this intro encapsulates that so much. And the fact that I'm freaking out about this, but it isn't even number 1 of the tier list. Anyway, might be like, hey, are you doing okay? I'm not acting normal about this show. It's because I'm not normal about this. I'm not normal about this show. Anyway, it's like May 1st, 2024. So, we'll see how long One Piece lasts. I might update this eventually. This is the tier list, the opening tier list for now.